Guys, it's me, Jody Hand, Mrs. Hand Painted, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to paint these lime slices. They're really bright and colorful, and I'm only going to be using two colors, my Daniel Smith watercolors, Hooker's Green and Hansa Yellow Light, and I'll show you step by step how you can paint these, and it's going to be super easy and you can do it. So come on, let's paint!
I wanted to start out today's tutorial by going over my supplies using fluid brand cold press paper in size 8 by 10, a watercolor pencil for drawing out my design, some Daniel Smith watercolors in Hansa Yellow Light and Hooker's Green, and Princeton Velvetouch brushes in rounds 1, 4, and 8. Although you could do a lot of this with just a 4 or a 4 and a 1. It's up to you, whatever brushes you prefer. I'm using here Prismacolor brand water-soluble colored pencils in just this light green color, and I'm just tracing out a square shape. I was going to do a rectangle, and then I changed my mind. I'm going to do a square here instead. And I'm going to be using this picture of lime slices as my reference of how I want them to look. And I will make sure that I put a link to that picture on my blog if you wanted to go back to it. I just found it on Pinterest by searching for lime slices. So really any just as an idea so you can figure out what they look like. And I'm doing this as part of a challenge for the Doodle Wash March 2020 for the World Watercolor Group. So their prompt for March 17th was something green. So I'm just below my square writing out the word something green just to add to my painting. So this is an optional part you don't have to do if you don't want. All right, and I want to just sketch out the circle shapes of my limes, and I'm realizing I'm not very good at drawing circles, so I'm going to use something. I happen to have these little circle templates I use for scrapbooking. They're from Simple Stories, and they have them in all different sizes, and I'm going to use the 2.5-inch circle, and I'm just going to draw them within my square, and I'm going to draw the ones that'll be in the front first. So really anything, a cup, something small you have that's a circle you can trace around, or if you're really confident about drawing circles, just draw them free-handed. I was not doing so good, so I'm using a little template. So I'm going to draw the ones that are more fully showing first, trace those around, and then I'll fill in around with the ones that'll be behind, just stopping my line where they intersect with the other limes. All right, so using that reference photo, I'm going to draw the little segment areas, just basically doing like the lines that you'd cut a pizza or a pie in, and I'm drawing a circle in the center that will be that white part. That's the, oh, what do you call that part of the lime? The rind. I'm just going to draw the pie shapes and then I'll paint that in. So I'm just doing this very lightly with my watercolor pencil and trying to do this in a similar color to what I'll be painting, that lime green color. So draw a circle in the middle and then draw your pie shapes around that. And I would just reference back to your photo just to give an idea. They're not all uniform in size, so this really doesn't have to be perfect. Some are thin and some are wider, but basically just a bunch of pie shapes. clean a little space on my palette so that I could get out my Hooker's green. And I'm just going to try to get a whole bunch of this on my palette here before I get started. And I did start out with a size 8 round brush here, but like I said in the intro when I was going over the supplies, really you could just do all of this with a size 4 or whatever brush you feel comfortable with. I thought I was going to end up using this big brush for the whole thing, and I switched to a smaller brush, and it probably would have been just fine for the whole thing. And then I'm also getting some Hansa yellow light so that I can mix up more of a lime green color. I don't want it to be so dark grass green color, so I want this to be dark lime, and I'm just going to put a little of the yellow in to start. I want the outside rind of my lemon slices to be darker green, and so I'm just going to go around the edge of all my circles of where the rind is, and again, just reference back to that picture to see what the limes look like. All right, and you can kind of vary this up because sometimes it'll be a little thicker or thinner, so just going around each one to do that detail of the rind. And then I'm also going to do an outline around my square that I drew for my outside border. And I'm switching over to my size 1 just to do my lettering at the bottom. And like I said, I was doing a challenge prompt called something green, so I went with the word something green. If you do want to do a sentiment on here, maybe you could do something related to limes, or you could, if you're not painting this as limes and you're doing it as citrus, maybe you could do something like when life gives you lemons. And if you're painting lemon slices instead of limes, you could also do oranges or grapefruits, just change the colors up. All right, so the next step will be adding just those little details around the rinds. There's like little dots along there, and I'll show the reference photo here again. All right, so using that round size 1, I mixed together a little bit more yellow into my green mixture to make it a little more lime. And I'm just doing little tiny dots just right on the inside edge of where I'm doing the rind. Here, I'll go ahead and I'll zoom in for you. All right, so as you can see, I'm just doing tiny little dots right on the inside edge of that rind, and the rest of that area is going to be more white. Like in the reference photo, it's got a dark green edge and then a white edge. It's got those tiny little yellowy green dots right on the inside, and then your segments of your lime come in there. just finish up doing all of those little dot details on the last of these, and then we'll move on to painting the segments of the slices. All right, and now after we finish that, we can switch to our Princeton Velvetouch round size 4 for doing the segments. So for the slices of the limes, just the little segments, I want to have a very light lime green, so mixing together that yellow and green until I get the shade I want. And I'm going to paint every other segment here because I want to have a little tiny thin white line in between each segment so that I don't have any bleeding and I can still see my shapes. I'm going to do every other wedge that I drew in, and then I can go back and do the other ones missing in the middle, and by the time I'm done doing those, they should be dry enough that I won't have each wedge bleeding into the other, and then I can have that nice little white line in between each. So we can go ahead and do all of the lime wedges, every other one, and then we'll go back and we'll do the others that we skipped over. All right, now I can go back and do all of the ones that I skipped over in the first round through. And like I said, I'm going to leave a very, very thin white line in between my wedges. And I'll make sure I go back and do every single one. And the ones that are coming off the edge here, you're not going to have that little white space left along the rind. And then after we get back done doing all of these wedges, we're going to have one final step where we go back and we'll add the details just to give those little wedges a little bit of texture. So we'll go back in after this is all dry. So again, just go ahead and fill in all of your rest of your wedges and leave that little white gap. And then we'll go back over after that dries. All right, now all of those are dry. I'm going to go back in and add my little texture over the top, and I'm still using my round size 4 brush, and I'm just going to go over each wedge and make some little strokes back and forth, varying their appearance, going short, long, just doing some little squiggles, going up and down to just give this a loose look of the little segments that are within each of those wedges. And I'm using the same color that I'd already mixed, so that it's just going to be a mix over the top. That's what's nice about watercolors, is that they layer over top of each other because they're transparent. So we're just going over top in the same color and it'll show that little bit of a detail. And I'm just going to go over every single wedge doing the same exact method. And I just zoomed in there a little bit so that you could see a little more up close how I'm doing those textures in the little wedges. All right, and we'll just finish up the last of those, and that is it. That is the last step on this, and it is all done. Thanks for painting with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to share your painting with me, I'd love to see it. You can use my hashtag on Instagram, Mrs. Hand Painted. Have a great day.